We are fresh off the Azerbaijan Grand Prix in Baku, so let's take a quick second and see what it had to offer. Not a whole lot, to be honest with you. So this race weekend was the first weekend this season where we tried out the new sprint format, and it was pretty cool. We had qualifying, the traditional qualifying, along with practice one on Friday. Charles Leclerc had pace this weekend. That boy was quick. He took pole in the traditional qualifying on Friday. He took pole for the race on Sunday. And then on Saturday, we got to see this new sprint format in action. So we had the sprint shootout, which was the basically qualifying for the sprint race later that day. Charles Leclerc, again, quickest in the sprint shootout, took pole. However, Sergio Checo Perez took the win and the 8 points in the sprint race. So right out of the gate, Perez takes a 2-point swing over Verstappen in the overall season standings, as I believe Verstappen finished third behind Perez and Leclerc in the sprint race. Oh, and I must add, we had that little bit of dramatic tension between Verstappen and George Russell in the, I believe it was in the actual sprint race. Was it the sprint shootout? I believe it was the sprint race, where it was one of the first turns where George Russell went in real tight, tried to take the inside on one of the tight turns, and went kind of nicked the side pod of Verstappen's car. And at the time, I thought, hey, it's just a driving incident. He full sent it straight in. He was trying to overtake Verstappen. Just so happened that it was such a tight turn that he grazed the side of Verstappen's side pod. Later, we see that he actually had punctured Verstappen's side pod, which Verstappen was pretty hot. As they, after they got out of their cars, Verstappen approached George Russell. Verstappen was not excited about what Russell did and said, hey man, gotta leave more space. I think Russell was just saying didn't have the traction, and Verstappen was like, none of us have traction. And then some other not so kind words were said by Verstappen. And hey, I understand emotions are high in those moments. And you never want someone to go in the side into someone's car. We want to race clean, but at the same time, this is a tight track. The walls are tight, and hey, Verstappen back in 2021, if I remember right, he was doing that same move on Hamilton almost every race, just full sending it. If he hits him, he hits him. And so hey, I get it. I want to see clean racing. So I'm glad to see George Russell just going for it and sending it. Yeah, I don't want to see him running into other drivers' cars and puncturing their side pods, but at the same time, I've got mad respect for George Russell. I love that he just went for it on Max, and that's that. And I gotta say, Baku is such a great race to watch. Always love watching the Baku GP, but hey, I've gotta say, this one was a bit underwhelming. So Leclerc starts on pole. By lap 6, both Red Bulls, Verstappen and Perez, have overtaken Leclerc. Leclerc, who has been fastest all weekend long. And by lap 6, he is overtaking. Those Red Bull boys did not just overtake, they went by him with lightning speed. I mean, if you ever have a Red Bull behind you on a straight with DRS, it's game over. Those dudes are in a different league. I mean, that looked embarrassing. So after starting on pole, Leclerc is overtaken within 6 laps, and the Red Bull boys drive off into the sunset. So I would say pretty much the only dramatic thing that really shook up the race a bit was when De Vries had a slight nudge of the wall on one of the turns and jacked up his front left wheel, and then he was done. So after the De Vries crash, Red Bull go for the strategy of immediately pitting Verstappen. However, As soon as Verstappen pits, they announce a full safety car, which then causes Max to lose the lead to Sergio and Leclerc. So now we've got Sergio in the lead with Leclerc, and now Max has gone from the lead to third. Perez then pits under the safety car, losing much less time, and exits the pits still ahead of Max and Leclerc. Then after the safety period is over, I think Max overtakes Leclerc within the first lap. So then we've got, for the rest of the race, pretty much we've got Perez, Verstappen, and Leclerc with a little procession behind them with very little mix-up. The thing I want to mention though is after this is where I think we have something that still needs fixing in F1. I know F1 has been working on this. They've been trying with the new tech regulations and so forth. They've been trying to fix this, make the racing better, make overtaking greater. However, in this race, we had the quickest car in qualifying, Leclerc, overtaken by lap 6 in dramatic fashion. Those Red Bull boys flew past. By the time the race finishes, that quickest car in qualifying, Leclerc, is 19 seconds behind the Red Bull boys. 19 seconds. That gap should not be there. That is absurd. That is absurd. 19 seconds. We got to do something about this. These Red Bull cars are completely in a different league, and unless they have some crazy DNF during a race, you can pretty much lock them in 1-2 for every race. It's just how it's going. They're that dominant. And while it's fun to watch a special car that is that quick and that dominant, you don't want to see the next team 19 seconds behind them, especially when they're a Ferrari with the history and the performance level of Ferrari. And when they had the quickest car in qualifying, you can't end the race 19 seconds behind Red Bull. That's absurd. One more thing that I wanted to add, which was a pretty shady situation at the end of the race, was when Esteban Ocon pitted for I believe his one and only pit stop in the final lap of the race. And as he was coming into the pits, you saw some cameramen and I believe some members of the FIA who were on the track, who were completely in the way, blocking the path, and they jumped out of the way at the last second. And thankfully, none of them were hit or hurt. However, that should never happen. I cannot believe there were people not only in the vicinity, but in the path of Ocon's car. Should not be even possible for that to happen until the race is 100% over. There is always the chance of someone pitting on the final lap, and it happened with Ocon, and thankfully, nothing happened, but it was too close for comfort, and I hope we never see that happen again. So let's go ahead and take a look at the race results. We obviously had the Red Bull boys, Perez and Verstappen, taking 1-2. Charles Leclerc coming in third. Good to see Leclerc taking, I believe, his first podium of the season so far and slotting into that third spot that Fernando Alonso has had for the last 3 races. So great to see Leclerc on the podium, even though he was, 19 seconds behind Red Bull. Unbelievable, but great to see him on the podium. Sainz in 5th, so pretty good showing for Ferrari, just way too far behind. But not a bad result. Good points finish for those two. Also good for Aston Martin, a 4 and a 7. And then we've got Mercedes with Hamilton and Russell coming in 6th and 8th. Great to see Lando up there. McLaren has been pretty underwhelming this season so far, but good to see them in the points, and Piastri very close to the points. Now heading over to the overall season standings. Perez with a solid weekend, cutting into Verstappen's lead by 9 points. cutting the overall gap to 6. So this is what we want. This is good to see. We want a tight battle at the top, and it's gonna be exciting the rest of the way. If we can keep it this close between Max and Sergio, it's gonna be exciting. So Alonso holding firm by 12 points in third. Good to see Hamilton up there in the mix. And so quite a few people still in the running, still in the mix, a ways back, but anything can happen. And those did not expect to see the Ferrari boys down in 5th and 6th at this point. I thought I'd see Leclerc quite a bit higher. Pretty solid weekend for him, so maybe things will turn around. So that's pretty much it for the Azerbaijan GP review. Let me know in the comments what you thought about the race. This weekend we head to Miami. Looking forward to that. So thank you if you've made it this far. It means the world to me. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it so much. If you wouldn't mind, drop a like on the video. If you've liked it, subscribe to the channel. It helps me a lot. I would greatly appreciate it. Thanks so much. I'm Seth with F1 Ocean. I'll see you in the next one.